Hello, this is Barrett from Cypress College, and in this lab video today, we're going to cover the Security Plus Lab Series Netlab 06, Wireless Networking Attack, and Mitigation Techniques. So essentially, this is broken down into three parts. We're going to be looking at PCAPs, or packet captures, of different network traffic. So you can see here, first we're going to take a look at plain text traffic. This is unencrypted by default. And then we're going to also look at web traffic and WPA traffic. And we're going to see how both of these are encrypted. We're going to see that we can't see certain things, right? But then we're going to look into ways that we can use tools like aircrack-ng to decrypt these packet captures and actually see the contents within. So that is this lab in a nutshell. And considering the topology, very simple, we're just going to be using the Kali machine for this one. Because everything's already been captured. We're actually dealing with PCAP files, so we don't have to work with any other machines to actually capture live network traffic. So I'm going to go ahead and log into the Kali machine. And first thing we want to do is just open up Wireshark. So Wireshark is the kind of the premier network sniffer packet capture tool that many security professionals use, and unfortunately threat actors as well. But this is a great one to get yourself familiar with and how powerful it could be. So there's a couple different ways we could launch Wireshark. We could open up the command line, the terminal, and just type in sudo Wireshark. And we could also go through the menu here, Kali Linux, sniffing, of course, network sniffers, and then you would find Wireshark here. I'm just going to go ahead and execute this terminal command. You will get a warning, I believe, and you could, yeah. So this error here, you could just press OK. No worries about that. All right, so here we are in Wireshark. If you did want to capture traffic, essentially what you would be doing is you would select a particular interface that you want to monitor on. So ETH0, for example, and then you would click start, and then it would just start, monitoring that network traffic. That's not what we're going to do in this lab today, though. Here, we're just going to go to File, Open, and in the temp captures folder, you see we have three different .cap files. So this is short for capture. Now, remember when we looked at the lab outline, we had three different, we had the plain text, we have the web traffic, and the WPA traffic. So we'll start with the plain cap here. So I'm just going to double click on that. And you see we have lots of different frames here. We have up to 22,743 different frames captured. And you can see here it's broken down by time, the source, and the destination. So you can see here we have MAC addresses of devices communicating together, but eventually you get down to the point where you're dealing with IP addresses. It tells you the protocol that's being used, the packet length, and then more detailed info down in this column. Okay, so the lab wants us to select the second frame here. And you may need to do some resizing on these fields down here. So we're mainly concerned with this middle portion right here. So you could actually drag this down lower. And so on this second frame, let's go ahead and drop down the wireless LAN management frame, the tagged parameters. And you can start to see, we see things like SSID, parameter sets, and what we're looking for here is the vendor specific tag. And then here we could see, okay, this is running WPA version 1, and even the OUI, which is tied to Microsoft. So this is an indicator of how you could tell that this is a Microsoft device. Then we could look for other various things, and especially using the filter is very important because, as you can see, we have a lot of information here, right? So let's say we wanted to filter for DNS captures. So you Important to note that this needs to be lowercase. If I had done all caps, let me do all caps and then I'll hit apply. You can see that that's not a valid filter. So the filter always needs to be lowercase. It is case sensitive. And then when you hit apply, you see that we are sorted strictly by DNS protocol here. So this is a quick and easy way to see, what kind of DNS requests have been made by computers on your network. People visiting lasvegas.com, for example, maybe they're getting ready for a trip. So this is the result of unencrypted traffic. You're actually able to see things like DNS requests and things like that. Now we can also go up to File, Export Objects, and then HTTP to get an even deeper look into web traffic. Let me see if I can. There we go. Bring that out a little bit. So you can see host names that were requested. And if you scroll over, you will probably also eventually start to see actual images. So the lab here would like us to take a look at this Cookie Monster -cupcake JPEG. And here we could say save as, and we could actually save this image from this PCAP. So I'll just save it into this captures folder here. And now if we come up to places, recent documents, you're going to see that JPEG image that we just saved. And you can see that that now resides on our local machine, and we're able to open that image with details about it as well. All right, so let's close out of the HTTP object list. And now let's do a little bit more filtering for something specific related to FTP data. So we could do FTP-data and frame contains. So we're essentially looking for FTP protocol and a frame that contains PK. And this PK is essentially short for PK-zip, which is something that's located in a file signature header. I'll show you another way that we could even search for a similar thing here. But you see, when we apply that, I just press enter. You can either press enter or hit apply. And the lab wants us to look for a specific frame number, which is 21207. So here, if we right-click and choose Follow TCP Stream, this is where we will get to take a look into that header information as well. And you can see here, it's actually pulling out JFIF, which is an indicator of an image. And you could kind of see that's Maryland4.jpg. If I scroll all the way down, you see we're starting to see multiple images in this. So, and remember I mentioned that PK is related to a zip file. So in a header. So this is why it kind of wanted us to search for this, indicating that this could be a potential zip file. So what I could do is say save as, and then let's go ahead and save this as just file.zip. Okay. And now if I open the terminal, ls, let's see. Oh yeah, so we're just in present working directory. We're just in the root directory here. But let's go ahead and unzip that zip file that we just saved. So we could give it an absolute path of /temp captures file.zip. And now if I list out the contents here, we see those three JPEG files. And if we go to places and then home folder, you will see that they have extracted here as well, and you can actually open it up and preview them. Okay, so what we just did there, remember this is the unencrypted capture file. We're essentially going to do the same methods in the other files, but remember first we need to decrypt them because the web traffic and the WPA traffic are both technically encrypted. So let's move on to the second portion of the lab, which is the web network traffic capture. So we could just go ahead and file open in Wireshark, and let's open web1.cap. And if you still have a filter remnant here, you can just get rid of that, press apply again. Okay. So now we are looking at web1.cap. We have over 100,000 frames this time. And with web, it's kind of important that the capture is a little bit bigger, because in order to crack the web key, you need what's called, and this kind of gets a little bit more in depth into cryptography and what you'll learn in other lessons, but you essentially need a large portion of what's called IVs, or initialization vectors. So, and you'll come to see that once we crack this, how many IVs that we were able to capture in this capture alone. But that's essentially why, whoops, got that out of order. It's essentially why this capture is a little bit larger. So, but first things first, let's go ahead and let's see what DNS queries we can see. Go ahead and apply. And sure enough, we see none, because this is currently encrypted. So that's a good thing, right? Likewise, we can try and export HTTP objects. And when we load this up, we find it completely blank. So currently, we can't really see much outside of just general traffic. And actually, yeah, you can't really see too much, right? It's just the communication back and forth between devices. So let's load up terminal. And we're just going to go ahead and run a tool called aircrack-ng against that capture file. So that's web1.cap. And here you can see it's asking us which target network. We're going to be targeting number 5, or the Towson. And you can see here, and this is looking at the capture file that we have. It found multiple IVs for different web traffic, but remember we're looking for this one that has a decent amount of IVs. This is going to make cracking a bit easier. So if you are ever targeting a web a network using web, which is highly unlikely these days, because this is extremely vulnerable. It's very trivial to crack. Most places aren't going to be using this, but it's good experience to see this in action. So let's go ahead and choose number 5. And aircrack-ng is doing its thing, and the key has been found. And I think for this lab purpose, they kept the key very simple. But in general, like I said earlier, web is fairly trivial to crack these days. So we found the key. Now we just have to run the air decap-ng command, give it the key value, and then the name of the capture file. Okay, and you can see here, number of decrypted web packets, 43,220. So now it's essentially created a decrypted capture file. So if we go back into Wireshark, let's go ahead and choose open. You see we now have a web1-dec.cap. So I'm going to go ahead and double click and open this. And you could already see that we have a lot more information here. We see TCP, HTTP. I saw some FTP information in there, ARP broadcasts, all kinds of things. So if we search for DNS this time, we now see that traffic because we've successfully decrypted this capture file. And if we also go to File, Export Objects, HTTP, we have a lot more options this time. Let me move this over. Okay. And then you get all the information here, all the different JPEGs. The lab would like us to go down to number 6988. Although essentially you could save out any of these things as general practice, but let's see, 6988. So this is NFL-football.jpg. Just go ahead and save as. I'll save that in the captures again. come up to places, recent documents. There we go. We have that saved out. Now let's go back into Wireshark. Let's take a look at FTP traffic, see what we see. Okay, now this gives you a good example of how FTP is considered an unsecure protocol because FTP transmits in clear text. So, first we had that layer, we thought we had a layer of defense of using web encryption, right? So maybe they thought, well, I don't mind using FTP. Everything's encrypted through web, right? Well, what happens if somebody is able to decrypt that? Well, you're sitting wide open using an unsecure file transfer protocol like FTP, because you see here, we see the username and we very easily see the plain text password. So, a common use case would be using SFTP, for example, because that would be using port 22, use a secure shell to further encrypt that transfer. And we could do another filter for FTP data and frame contains. And let's look for JFIF, which is a common header portion for images. And by the way, I forgot, I meant to show you earlier too. You could do something as simple as JPG as well. And you can see right here, FTP data, it's pulling out information related to JPEG images. But I'll go ahead and go back to following the lab, and we'll do JFIF. And let's go ahead and look at, we can just look at this top frame 8347. We'll right click again, follow TCP stream, look at more details here. Oftentimes this is pretty hard to pull anything out, but you do see the JFIF in the header there. And we could go ahead and save that. We'll save this as pic.jpg. Places, recent documents. We could open that up, and it's a picture of some basketball players. All right, so that takes care of section 2 with the web network traffic decryption. And now let's go ahead and here, I'm going to clear out this filter. Whoops. All right, let's go ahead and open the WPA-01. So we're essentially going to go through a similar process, but you're going to see that we're going to actually use a password list to attempt to brute force crack the WPA passphrase. So let's see what we can see here. So can we see any FTP information? No, we cannot. Can we see any DNS information? No, we cannot, because remember we're looking at the encrypted capture. Export objects HTTP. Nothing here as well. All right, so let's pull up my terminal from down here. Clear the screen out. So let's use aircrack-ng. We'll give it the location of the capture file. And here, slightly different, we're going to feed it a word list. So -w, lowercase w, /temp, word lists, pass list. So this is an actual file called pass list that basically just has a dictionary list of possible passwords. And once again, it's going to ask us, okay, which network do you want to target? And here we want to continue to target the Towson 333. So we're going to choose number 3. And that was pretty fast, right? So this is a pretty small, simple password. It's missing numbers, it's missing special characters, or just, I would say the length of it is not very long. Honestly, the best passwords these days are passphrases that are at least like 4 words. They could be simple and even all lowercase, but it's more about the length of the passwords these days, and especially when run against dictionary lists and brute force attempts like aircrack-ng. Cool. So now that we have the passphrase, we can run air decap -ng. We'll once again feed it the capture. And now we're going to do a -e Towson 333 to tell it which network. And then the pass -p is breezeless. Whoops. I added an extra S. So you can see, as you might guess, it didn't decrypt anything because that was the wrong password. I'm going to press up to just rerun that, take out that extra S, and there we go. So we've decrypted over 11,000 packets. So now we can go back to Wireshark. File open. Let's go ahead and open up the decrypted capture. All right, right away we see DNS, but let me go ahead and filter for that. Okay, we see all of the DNS traffic. Let's take a look at the HTTP objects. All right, lots of information here. Let's take a look at 10,349 from the lab. Okay, so howstuffworks.com. We've got a random numbered image here. Let's go ahead and save that and see what we got. Okay, there we go. And let's go ahead and close out of that. See what kind of FTP traffic we have going on here. All right, we can just scrolling through here. We see a lot of different PDFs that are being transferred. That's the thing too. You can see all the files that are being requested. And somewhere here, yep, we have the username and the password as well, which, wow, that password is really bad, right? And let's go ahead and do another filter just to get the hang of this. FTP-data and frame contains. And let's look for another zip file. So remember, PK is a common indicator of a zip file in the file signature header. And let's take a look at the second frame here, 421. We'll follow that TCP stream. Looks like there's an image, or multiple images of Elmo in here. So let's go ahead and file, save this as elmo.zip. And we'll pull up, where's my terminal? Here we go. Let me clear the screen. We'll go ahead and unzip that file. So it was in captures. And by the way, you may have noticed that as I'm typing out these file paths, what I'm doing here is pressing a tab key. And as long as that folder exists, or sometimes also a file, it will autocomplete for you. So just a little Linux pro tip. See right here, it will know that there's an elmo.zip file. So even though I started typing Elmo, hit tab, it's going to complete that for me. Okay, so I'm going to unzip that. ls to list the contents. We see the Maryland images that we unzipped previously, and then we also see the new Elmo images. If I come up to places, home folder, we can also see those images here. And the reason why we can see them in this file explorer that I just opened is because we are indeed in the home folder here. Granted, it's the root home folder. And another Linux tip, if you see this tilde, that is designation of your home folder. So if I went to desktop, for example, I'm now in the home folder, desktop folder. But if I went to cd / this is actually the system root folder. So if I list out the contents, you're going to see a lot more system folders here. And an easy shortcut, if you ever just want to go back to your home folder, you do cd and then the tilde sign. And you can see we have now moved back into that home folder. So just a little aside, not a part of the lab, but thought I'd explain that for a little Linux help. But anyways, it appears that is the end of the lab. So once again, just to recap, we had 3 different sections here. We looked at wireless capture files that were, pre-captured. We looked at a cap file that was just plain text, unencrypted, naturally saw all of the DNS information, the FTP information. And then we looked at network traffic, cracked that web key, and then finally WPA traffic, and we're able to brute force the password or passphrase with a word list. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.